Laughing Vikings Live. High vibe chats with actors, comedians, and creators, plus stand-up comedy, sketch comedy, and most importantly, you. That's right, join us every Monday for new episodes, and you can be a part of the show on Facebook Live, YouTube Live, and Twitch. Ask questions and interact in the comments, and make sure to share this with your actor, comedian, and creator friends so they can be a part of the show too. Can't make a live show? No problem. You can catch up on your favorite podcast platform and visit laughingvikings.com to find out how you can join the cast and crew. All right, it's time for today's show. Buckle up and make sure you stick around to the end because we have a special surprise for you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is Laughing Vikings Live. Happy Monday Fun Day. Let's go. Hey. It is episode 40. The podcast has just turned 40. Laughing Vikings Live, enjoying our 40s. We went out and we grabbed some multivitamins, and the podcast has to start getting colonoscopies now. Welcome to episode 40. How you doing, BK Broiler?
Colonoscopies aren't the greatest thing in the world, but I'm doing fantastic, Lars.
I mean, you got to keep your podcast safe.
Exactly.
An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure when it comes to podcast colonoscopies, I believe is how the saying goes. So, yeah, episode 40. This is great. And you've been on board for what, like 21 of those, I believe?
Yeah.
Nice.
I'm now eligible to drink.
Nice.
In our podcast episode age.
It's your 21st podcast birthday. Nice. Yeah, everywhere. Yeah, 19. Oh no, not in the States. You can't. You can only drink here.
I can drink in the States. Quebec. 21.
Yeah, but you've only been on 19 episodes.
No,
you have been on 21. Right. Yeah, you can drink everywhere. You're right. Yeah. Math, I guess, not my forte. Yes.
It's okay. It's all right.
Yeah, so that's exciting. We've turned 40 here. This is 40 for the podcast, and we also had an amazing weekend here in Comedy Alley. We had the grand opening of Comedy Alley. We had the previous week. If you've listened, you've heard that we did a couple shows, but that was more of a soft launch with close friends and family. But we had live ticket sales, and we had a couple bangers on Saturday night and Sunday night. And we had a ton of amazing comedians. I want to just look at my list here and make sure I give them all a proper shout out. Hang on one second. We had, so many. We had Sandra Battellini, Chris Bonaparte, Nitish Sakuja, Pat Thornton, Raheel Sheikh, Big Norm, Anto Chan, Keith Pedro, Sam Norton, and Chris Robinson. I hosted the shindig. Our Comedy Spider was there for every show. And if you're wondering what's the Comedy Spider, Comedy Alley has a resident spider, sort of like the doorman slash security. He's working his way up in the comedy club arena, hoping he's going to do an opening spot one of these days. He's working on his material. So many things. We started some traditions. The great thing about anything new, and especially post-COVID now, we're all sort of like, we have these reopenings and reawakenings, new starts, fresh beginnings. So one of the traditions is every show features a lot of kazoos, a lot of slide whistles. We've got a comedy banana, so many things in that Comedy Alley that are great traditions. And another tradition that we've started in Comedy Alley and also here on the podcast is just acknowledging that Laughing Vikings is the land that we're on, and the space where the studio was originally the land of the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat people. And we also want to acknowledge the enduring presence of all First Nations people, Indigenous people, and Métis and Inuit as well. So thank you. And the other thing that was pretty interesting this weekend, Brandon, I don't know if I told you about this, but I overheard one of the weirdest things I've ever heard in my life. I have this really fun game. I actually want to make it into a TV show.
Okay.
The working title is sort of called In Passing.
All right.
One of my favorite simple pleasures in life is when you're just out walking, either with a friend or by yourself, you get this weird snippet and weird glimpse of the passerby conversation. So as someone's walking, you sort of get that, what's the effect when an ambulance goes by where you like the sound? I don't know what that, there's a scientific term for it, but you kind of start to hear them when they're in front of you. and then they're getting closer. You hear a couple words, and then as they pass, and then it trails off. So my idea that I've always wanted to do is to greenlight a show where literally the writing room is legit. We go out for walks. There's no fake stories, but you just go out for a walk, and either we're mic'd so we get the real live audio as people pass, or we just listen, and then as soon as we hear a doozy, we write it down, and that sources all of the snippets that then we extrapolate on. So to bring this around, what I heard, I'm going to look for it in my phone here. I wrote it down because I'm like, I can't ever forget this. So I'm walking. This happened, I think this was Thursday night. I walked past, and just in passing, so two lovely ladies, I think they had just left the patio, or maybe they came, I think they'd come out of the patio, sort of little jovial, like super casual. They said this so casually. This lady, as she's walking, says to her friend, she's like, I know, this is like the new Gina cut off a finger story. And I'm like, what? Yeah, I know. This is like the new Gina cut off a finger story. And then they're gone. And I'm just left there like, whoa, you can't just sprinkle me with a
off like that. What is that?
With a finger chop story and not tell the rest. So immediately all these things running through my head. I'm like, how did she, like, was it her finger? How did she do it? If it was her finger, was it an accident? Was she just chopping onions that she hacked it off? Was it like a garburator thing where she got?
Was it a revenge story? I don't know.
Exactly. Was it maybe her name is Gina Soprano, and she just like she had to rein somebody in. Like, she was like, hey, what the fuck? You think I'm some kind of moron here? You got to pay the bills. And then she just hacked off a finger right there. So I'm going through all these, like, is she okay? Did the finger get reattached? Did she get it in? I think you're supposed to put a finger in
ice,
milk or ice. Yeah. Was it a Gina Bobbitt kind of thing where she was mad at her lover and she was like, I would so cut off your dick right now, but I'm going to spare you and just cut off a finger because I'm not an asshole. It was pretty nice. Gina, if you were about to chop his penis off and you just chop the finger off, technically that's a pretty nice thing to do. So
you really downgraded there.
But so I'm going through all these scenarios as I'm walking. I'm like, Gina and the finger. And then I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. The whole point of what this lady said is that there's now a story that replaces Gina's finger cut off.
Right.
Story. So I'm like, what is that? Is that a second thing? Like, does this lady know two people who have cut off two separate fingers? Was it another appendage? Was it something completely unrelated that just trumps hers? So that's the gist of the show in passing, is get all these crazy things. And then maybe it's hosted like Tosh.0, where we introduce it, but then we break out into sort of the what would you call it? Like choose your own adventure, where we're like, was it this? And then we break out into a little sketch scenario where we've scripted, this is how Gina cut off her finger, or we're like, maybe it was this. And then we go through all those alternatives, but all just with the seed of one or two sentences that you hear from a random passerby. So thank you, random lady on Queen Street. Gina, I hope your finger is okay. I hope the person you cut it off, or your own hand, if it was your own hand, I hope everyone's okay. And whoever brought that news story, like, that is a doozy. And if somehow magically you're listening to this and you're like, Gina, I know a Gina who has a finger cut off story, you need to get her to contact us. And I think we need to have Gina on the podcast.
Probably.
Right?
We need to talk to Gina. Someone needs to talk to Gina.
We need to talk to Gina Soprano. Yes. I also just want to point out, too, for those who are watching today, you'll see behind me, I am technically in Comedy Alley right here, up on stage. The show's still going on. Everyone's being very still and very quiet, but that's Chris Robinson still on stage. I think he's setting a record for longest set. Who we got? Where am I here? We got right here. That's Anto Chan, and that's Sam Norton. Over here, that's Sammy Fareed. I think that's Kat Vitkoff up there. Hell of a night. So Make sure, if you have not been to Comedy Alley yet, go to laughingvikings.com/comedy alley. That's laughingvikings.com/comedy alley. Or if you're on Instagram, go to our link in bio and you can get tickets. And what we're doing is we're running a promo. If you use coupon code FRIENDS, Friends, like the TV show, or the friends that we are to you and that you are to us, FRIENDS, you'll get 50% off tickets for this upcoming week here. So hit us up at Comedy Alley and join us. It's an intimate night. So fun. The vibe. You were there actually on Friday.
Yes, I was.
Saturday. You were there Saturday, yeah?
Yes, yeah. It was great. It was so much fun.
And
we got to hang out with the spider. We got to hang out with the raccoon.
Oh yeah, the raccoon. And guess so this is the other thing. Mid-show, who was on stage? Oh, Raheel Sheikh was on stage, and a few people in the front row of the audience just all of a sudden randomly out of nowhere, there's like there's this, and above him, like right, if you can see here, like right up here is just the roof. And so a little raccoon came like right to the edge and was looking. I think he was heckling Raheel a little bit. But yeah, it was a Moss Park raccoon, which is called a crackoon. They're pretty mischievous. But he came back again last night.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, we got regulars. Yeah. We have regular raccoons.
Gotta love those comedy raccoons.
I'm not 100% if they bought tickets, so we might need to set up a little security or doorman or something. We can't just be giving away comedy to raccoons.
Isn't Luna supposed to deal with that?
She's supposed to. One time, a raccoon legit walked right into the studio. The door was open here, and midsummer, it was 100% rabid too, or if it wasn't rabies, it was certainly sick. And it just kind of like waddled like a little drunk raccoon. And Luna just was like, what the fuck? Like, she didn't even bark at it or freak out. Usually she does.
Yeah.
But I think this was just so jarring. And I think she probably recognized her animal instincts, recognized that this raccoon was off as well.
Okay.
Something was up with it. But I was like, hey, get out of here, and had to shoo a drunken raccoon out of here. So
yeah,
it's exciting. It is exciting. Also a great spot for a date night as well. There's a date night special on the website. Bring a date. The tickets are very limited, so make sure you book in advance. There's only a small amount of space, and obviously we've got some COVID regulations limiting gathering sizes too. But it's fantastic. I love it. I love it. So let's move forward here. We got a clip to introduce our guest. We got a special one here because our guest is not related by blood, but related by projects
production.
And professionally with you.
Yes.
One of your writer-directors in a show that you've recorded but is coming up. So you introduce it and you explain who we got on the show.
So this clip is from a show I did back in December called The Woman He Painted, which is about John Singer Sargent and his famous painting, Madam X. And this is him painting that painting, or just beginning to do the sketches for that painting. So rolling the clip.
You didn't bring your paints.
No, I didn't.
Curious how you will paint me without them.
Oh, I don't paint first. I sketch in pencils. I see what poses work well for you, and then from those, I will find the ones that I will be painting.
I'm sure I'm good with any pose.
I'm sure that you are.
So, how would you like me?
Don't worry, Madame Gautreau. I will let you know.
Oh, did you want a drink?
Sorry?
A drink?
No, I don't drink and draw.
Pity. It might get interesting.
I assure you that you wouldn't want to see yourself if that happened. Okay, I'm ready. I want you to lounge on the couch, please.
Shouldn't I sit up straight?
You can if you want, but it'll be a long sit for you.
Then I'm going to lounge. Like this?
That's perfect.
So I just stay like this?
Yes, exactly like that.
And I look all right?
You look beautiful.
You think I'm beautiful?
I do. You're probably the most beautiful woman in this country.
Well, that is flattery. Even more so than your wife.
Oh, I'm not married.
Oh, really? How fortunate.
I believe you're married.
Yes, that's rather unfortunate.
Oh,
My husband is here in name only. We have a certain space in our relationship.
oh. You have relations outside your marriage.
That's a nice way of saying it. He screws other women and I screw other men. That's how I define it. Oh, something wrong.
No, I've just never really heard a woman speak as bluntly as that.
You must have noticed that I tend to get right to the point.
I have noticed that, yes.
And you seem far less sure of yourself.
May I be honest?
Of course.
I don't think that you would say yes to me. Or I didn't think you would say yes to me. I thought I would ask and you would refuse.
Do I seem like that kind of woman? The kind that would say no?
I honestly had no idea.
You said I was beautiful. That's a first step to saying yes.
You could be painted by anyone.
I know I could. What makes you think I didn't choose you?
But we met at that party.
I knew you were there before I got there.
You knew I was going to be there.
You use your pencils to plan what you're going to paint. I just use different tools. How do I look?
Stunning.
I meant my drawing.
Right, your drawing, it's good, but I'm not sure if it's the right pose. It might be a little too...
Seductive?
It's something. I'm feeling that I might have you stand. I think everything about you will translate that way.
I leave it up to the artist to decide that.
I don't think you've ever let anyone decide anything for you.
No, I haven't. My mother thinks she does, but she sees what she wants to see. So, I will be standing then?
Yes, I think you should.
Up to you.
I think it would be safer that way.
Safer for whom?
That I'm not sure about. I just like my odds.
Well, you just tell me what you want and I'll do it.
I'm sure you will.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. That reminded me of I had like shades of Leonardo DiCaprio and Kate Winslet in Titanic there. I thought you were gonna take her to the front of the ship and be king of the world out there.
We will later.
Oh, do you? Nice.
No.
I'm also like your character in that I'm a fan of the word screw. I think screw is one of the funniest. It's kind of like a clean, dirty word kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like you can get away with it and just say screw. Something about screw. You can get away with screw. You can't get away with a lot of other things. Screw. All right.
So
let's give the grand intro here. Let's give you.
I'd love to. So our guest today is an award-winning writer, director, and producer. We have Stephen Elliott Jackson.
Clap him in, everybody. Clap him in. Clap him in. Hey. Welcome to Laughing Vikings Comedy Alley and Laughing Viking Studio. And technically, it looks like you're in a young boy's bedroom. Is that what you're
pretty much? Yeah. It's pretty much it. Thank you for having me. It's really quite nice. Yeah, no, this is like everything in my bedroom here is like it's kind of laughable sometimes what I've got in my room type thing. Got toys, got books,
Explain some of it. It's comic book stuff, or I can't see that.
Yeah,
far. What's
I'm a huge comic book fan. I'm a huge comic book fan. I'm always been a fan of DC Comics since I was like 5. I was remarking recently that a comic book that I grew up on, the very first one I remembered, actually just celebrated its 40th anniversary this year. Wow. And it's like, wow, I feel old now suddenly. And thank you. Yeah, and I've still got those comic books somewhere. That's the cool thing.
Nice. Do you have all of them from all 40 years?
Yeah. Oh yeah. That series, I collected the whole thing. It was just a beautiful series. It was like golden age characters with like a lot of World War II history intermixed, and it was such a great comic book. I just loved it. It was called the All-Star Squadron.
Do you have one prized possession, either sentimentally or in value, out of everything that you've got there?
You can't see it here. The one, probably my favorite thing is I have a war medal from my great grandfather from the Fenian raids of 1866. It was given to him by Queen Victoria, but it was given a little bit quite after his life, or after a little bit quite a bit later. It was about 1890 when he received it finally. But it was a time when we weren't even a country. I think that's kind of cool if you think about it. So,
wow,
cool.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So you're an acclaimed, actually award-winning actor, or sorry, not actor, writer, director, and producer, and you're involved in a couple shows that Brandon has been involved in, or you've cast Brandon in those shows, one of them upcoming in Fringe. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about your production company, Minmar Gaslight. But first, as we do with all of our guests here, we're going to throw you to the wolves. This first section is called 1 Minute Life Story, where Brandon is going to throw 60 seconds on the clock, and you can go from conception up to the current day, or maybe in the future, and tell us Stephen Elliott Jackson's 1 minute life story, starting now.
So I was born and raised in a small town, Manitoba, called Minto, and had 100 people growing up. I am 7th generation Canadian, English, Irish, Scottish, Italian. I went to school first in Brandon. I didn't really start script writing until I hit Brandon University, though I recognized it earlier on. I graduated from University of Regina in film and video production and theater. I moved to Toronto about 20 years ago. In 2007, I won my first prize for a play called The State of Tennessee at the Toronto Fringe for Best New Play, came in second. And then I ended up winning Best New Play at the Toronto Fringe in 2017 for a play called The Seat Next to the King. In 2020, I then ended up winning Best New Play for Hamilton Fringe for a play called Three Ordinary Men. I dig into history, I dig into comic books, I dig into real people all the time. And that's really, a lot of what I write. I have a partner named Todd who is in the other room snoozing or eating hamburger helper, I don't know. And that's pretty much me.
Boom. Elliott Jackson in 1 minute, ladies and gentlemen. That was tight. That might have been, you can tell you're a writer. You know your way around words.
Yeah.
How do you condense?
Yeah, there was structure. There might have been a thesis statement in there, maybe some topic sentences. That was good. Sometimes we have stand-up comedians in here, and it's kind of a weird, just rambling until they run out of time. So
yeah.
Well, I think stand-up comedians have to be ready for when something either goes right or doesn't go right. And I think, thankfully I can script, I've got a little bit of leeway before that happens.
You create the backup plan, right?
Oh yeah. And trust me, and Brandon knows this. Sometimes you write something and you go, oh, that was really not a good thing to say. Let's take that out.
Yeah.
we did that with this script, read the current one.
Yeah. We're cutting that. Yeah. No, that doesn't make sense. Yeah.
Well, I just made fun of myself.
And I also noticed in your 1 minute life story that you've got quite a Brandon connection. You've got your Brandon days happened a long time ago, and now you've continued with Brandon Knox here. That's something special.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, no, I grew up just south of Brandon, Manitoba, and that's where my brother still lives, and almost all my family. I'm the only one in Ontario, so I moved away and everyone stayed. So yeah, and then Brandon, I met about 3 years ago.
Yeah.
It's hilarious because we're both in the theater and we actually haven't done anything
in the
completely theater yet. That's kind of funny. It's all been digital. Oh, we lost Lars.
Oh yeah, he'll come back.
Okay.
My video's laggy as F right now, but what do you do? Nothing.
I empathize. I had just got a new laptop, and it would have been probably the same thing. So don't worry.
Yeah, I'm not sure why it's doing it, but if you're listening, you probably sounds perfect right now. So don't worry about it. We always like to know how people got started. When you were younger, how did you first get into either theater or writing? What was your first
Well, I can put a bit back to about grade 6. I remember I had an English teacher named Diane Cruz who I was a super shy kid when I was growing up, and I didn't really get out of that until much got older, but she really helped me. We used to have these weekly meetings in class, and what they were was every kid had to do an activity. So it was read a tongue twister. I don't know, teach everyone in the room something. do a book review. That was my favorite. Like when it was the book review, it was like I would just bring books to life in front of people. And I love reading, and Brandon knows I love reading. I read like 100 books a year. So
Wow.
I get into that. When I got into high school, again, theater wasn't something I could really do because it was a small town. It was 100 people. The town I went to high school in was even worse. Well, it was a little better. It was like 5,000. But the difference was that I would have to drive there to do it. And so I never did any theater in high school. But I recognized very quickly that I was doing small bits of theater as I went along. Like I remember doing a scene from To Kill a Mockingbird for a class, and a horrible Southern accent, but I was at least tried. And then I remember in grade 12, we had to do this assignment where we read a biography and we had to portray a scene for the class from that person's life. And I decided to do a guy who was a psychiatrist going to a psychiatrist. I thought that was really kind of fascinating. And it was this really weird story about a son who found out his father had mental things done to him in Montreal that were actually funded by the CIA, and it was a for real true story. And so I do this monologue about talking about my dad and all this sort of stuff. And I look to the back of the room when I finish, and my English teacher was just crying, like it was just bawling in the back row. And I'm going, okay, why did no other child elicit this reaction? No one else in my class did this. Like everyone else was very kind of safe, and I just kind of let it go. I sang Swanee at one point because that was their favorite song. And I realized, wait, I did something. I don't know what I did, but it seemed to be a good thing. And so I think I should keep doing that. I got kind of sidetracked into film because I also did a film in grade 12 as well too, that had won a prize in the region for just best documentary. It was about the history of my hometown. So I got kind of sidetracked into film, but theater seemed to always be grabbing me from some other direction. Like it was I took some drama classes. I was not a good actor really per se, but I loved writing. I loved writing portion of it. And then when I decided to pursue the film stuff a little bit, I realized that when I was taking all these film classes that it was intriguing to watch film, but it was so technical. I really want to know about humans. I want to do stuff with that. And a lot of my stories were not technically great, but they were telling stories of these human beings and stuff. And so I started doing a lot more theater classes where I could go to see theater and participate in theater. And that's when I started to write. I had a teacher in, I guess, my fourth year. I got to know her my first year, and her name was Mary Blackstone. And we actually still talk to each other now and then and stuff like that. And there was a reading recently out at University of Regina, and I joined in, and she went, "Oh my God, Stephen!" Oh my God, yeah. It was we had a nice little reunion going on. But she really taught me about just digging into stories and digging into scripts and taking your time to read them. I read Streetcar Named Desire with her. I remember doing that in the class, and she asked. I still speed read a little bit, but I sped read the play a little bit, and I missed an amazing plot point, and she asked me about it, and I went, what are you talking about? What are you talking about her being raped? I missed that completely. And she said, go back and read the script and go through it again. And I ended up doing a one-on-one intensive for a semester with her, where I wrote this whole long script. One I actually had written for my dad for a Christmas present, which confused him greatly. But because nothing confuses a farmer dad like a theater script, I swear. It's like I put his shirt with it just to make sure that he was okay at the end of it. Mm-hmm. But he ended up reading it all the way through. But I ended up developing that piece with her, and it was just an amazing experience, just kind of just digging like that. And I realized that's what I love doing. That's what I want to be doing all the time. But it's hard because you're in a small community, a small town, and it's not the most thought of as valuable commodity to go from a small town. But it was when I came to Toronto, and I was still kind of writing scripts and still kind of doing stuff, and I entered this script called The State of Tennessee into the Best New Play contest, the Toronto Fringe, where all of a sudden it came in second, and I'm like, what? It didn't make no sense to me, but I was kind of like, okay, let's I think this is what I've got to do. And then when I won the second time, that's when I said to myself, okay, this is it. Like, this is what I want to be doing all the time, as much as I possibly can. Any job I have will be just in service of whatever that is. So it's like when I'm done now I'm working at Crate and Barrel, but once I'm done there, I'm back home writing scripts. Like that's what I do. So
love it.
Yeah.
So that piece, State of Tennessee, that was sort of, is that kind of like Tennessee Williams fan fiction type thing where you took
A
that
little
world
bit
and extrapolated, or was more based on his real life? Or
it had a little bit of his real life in there. It's about a young writer, pretty much myself, going to visit him in Key West, Florida to learn how to write plays, and then getting caught up in my own Tennessee Williams script while I was there.
brilliant.
And it was a hard play to do because there's a lot about my relationship with my mother that's in that play, because there's a lot about Tennessee Williams and his mother that was so intriguing and such. So, and I had a really funny experience with that when we actually produced it. My brother came to town, and he had never read the script at that point. Now he reads every script, but I wrote the script, and it happened to be the talkback night. And he sees his play, and he hears certain things that my mother had called me or said to me when I came out as being gay. And he was like, he said he thought he's gonna be smart and start asking questions during the talkback. And did she really say that? I said, oh yeah, that's what she said. And he was like, whoa, I didn't know any of this. And so we went out for a drink afterwards and talked about the script and talked about what happened. And but I bring in me sometimes to scripts, sometimes I don't. I've always learned that if you write about yourself, if you can't see yourself as the bad guy in the story, you shouldn't be writing about yourself. Then it just becomes vain at that point and says, yeah. So I sometimes written myself, but yeah, that's a little different.
Well, because your next play, The Seat Next to the King, has been performed all across Canada, and I believe in some places in the U.S.
We did it here in Toronto, and then we did it in Kitchener, which was a great experience. And then it got done down Buffalo, and then there's a company down in California that did a play reading of it during COVID. Mm-hmm. And it was really cool because it's a super intimate play. It does not work almost at all for COVID, view cams and stuff like that. But they did a great job, and they did it. It was what was great about that production was it was the first time I saw it done with age appropriate actors to the characters. Oh, and that makes a huge difference, right? I will always love the Toronto production. It was my favorite. We dug the deepest into that one. But it was interesting seeing the actors of that age playing the parts that they're supposed to be playing, right? Yeah.
What age were they supposed to be played at?
Sorry?
What age were they supposed to be played at, the two characters?
In their mid-40s.
Oh, okay. And
so we had two actors who were in their mid-20s.
Okay, yeah.
And because it was hard, casting can be always so tricky. Tanisha Tate, who directed it, said to me the most beautiful thing, which was, it doesn't matter the ages, it matters the chemistry. If the chemistry works, it will work. Mm-hmm. And no one will even think about it. It's kind of, how sometimes we see Shakespeare plays of different diverse backgrounds of actors, and it might be the daughter of someone, and you don't think about it because you're so caught up in the story that you don't think about it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. Unless you have to. Yeah. Unless that's part of the story. But yeah, definitely. It was interesting. And definitely the one in Buffalo was a very special production because the half of your play just done outside of Canada was just so cool anyways. And I got to go down for the opening, and they called me up to do one rehearsal, and I was I'm a very non-interactive writer when it comes to rehearsals. I kind of once I've written the play, it's now the director to take on the play and do stuff, and to get asked a lot of questions in the room was a little odd because I'm I don't want to step on the director's toes or what he's planning to do and stuff like that. And so but it was unique, and it was a lot of fun, and I still talk to those actors now and then. I kept up with them through COVID as well too. The one who played Walter in the show down there, I'm dying to write him something else, to give him another script, because and Brendan, you probably know this, sometimes where actors get caught into certain patterns of roles, and directors only see that actor. Mm-hmm. He's this guy who's a song and dance man. He can do any musical you can think of, and then he does Walter in The Seat Next to the King, which is the least musical, the most wrought character probably he would ever get. And he was I love doing this. I finally could do a character that was nothing like everything else. Yeah.
One of the things you said a little earlier, Stephen, that I love is how you mentioned when you were getting into film, you always would return to theater. And that sort of parallels one of our acting coach, Tom Todoroff. He always often mentions that really the only training for an actor is theater, for a couple reasons. One is it's typically the best writing, but two, it's you have to be able to walk on stage and carry a whole scene or a whole show yourself where you're on stage. There's no cuts, there's no redos, there's no editing, there's no cut to hide things. There's all of that stuff. So it's very pure. Whereas on film set, it's not really about, it's more about all the camera stuff and the lighting, and it's more so crew than actors. There's a sense, being an actor on a film set, you almost feel like you're just in the way. Like you're like, where do you guys need me? I'm just gonna stand here and you move all this stuff around. Like
stand against this wall, and if you need me, you can push me somewhere else.
And the other thing about film is typically there's like 0 or like 0.01 amount of rehearsals too, whereas theater can be weeks and weeks and weeks, or months and months and months, and then film.
Well, in film school, that was the problem I had, was that when I do film projects, I would rehearse with the actors for like over and over and over, and then turn the camera on. And my camera people would get so mad at me. They're like, okay, can I just shoot something? Can we just shoot it like 20 times and do that? I'm like, no, I want to make sure we get it right now. Like, why am I gonna make an actor do it over and over and over and over again, knowing none of it will be used? Where I think in theater, it's so dangerous, right? You know, and I'm sure, you know, Ed Brandon's an actor. He knows this. Like, if you forget a line, shit hits the fan. Like, you got to figure it out. You got to figure out how to get out of it, and you've got to figure out now. And I will tell you, I always reward community theater actors sometimes a little more than professional actors, because community theater actors know that's gonna be a possibility of happening, and I've got to learn how to get out of it.
Right. Yeah.
Where professional actors have had this like amazing amount of training, they get, you know, sometimes way more time to rehearse something, and when something goes wrong, it's like an anomaly of nowhere. Community theater actors, it could happen at any moment, anytime. You don't know how to get out of it. But I saw this. I was watching a production in Winnipeg when I was studying theater in Brandon. We went to Winnipeg to see a show of Our Country's Good, which is a beautiful little play. And the actor just forgot the line, and he just stood there. He stood there for like a long time. And he finally had to say to someone, he's turned off stage, like, what's my line? And that's like, I'm like, oh my God, like, you can't do that. You've got to move on. You've got to move on. And, you know, I that's why sometimes, you know, some people always go, oh, community actors, you know, they're just, you know, I'm like, no, sometimes community actors are incredible people and can do incredible things, you know, with doing a job during the day before they get there, with far less rehearsal time, and a wide variety of actors they're working with. Mm-hmm. They've got to work with so many different levels, right? So,
Brandon, we've talked about that lots, where one of our favorite things in theater shows is those sort of happy accidents, whether it's a line or somebody screws up blocking, or they forget to place a prop, and the gun that you need or the knife you need is like, look at this knife, but the knife is not there. So you're like, oh shit, what do I do now? It's always one of my favorite things in a live show. And it also, if you're doing a run of shows, those are the things for you as the actor that make each show fresh. And you use the word danger too, is there is a slight, just enough where you're sort of on your toes. And another favorite thing of mine is there's a moment between actors it happens in film too, but it's more so on stage, I think, where because on film you're just like, oh fuck, I fucked up, like or somebody else cut, but you can't yell cut in theater. But the moment where something goes wrong, like you've missed a line or you've skipped a part, and you look at the other person as the character, like you're seeing him as a character, but you also see actor eyes, like where the
gloss over.
Save this
now. Save, please help me.
And similar to that guy that you mentioned who was like called off stage line, I've been on stage where the lead actor opposite me, it was sort of, at the time it was community theater, and we didn't have a ton of rehearsals, and it was a pretty heavy script dialogue wise, in his defense. But he was on stage and he dropped his line and sort of like through his teeth was like, where are we? What's my line, kind of thing. And but like, there's people in the front row like 6 feet from us or less. So it's like, you know, you're whispering to me, but everyone here somebody can hear and see you. So I was like, what's my line? So that production, I became the guy that I was always on my toes, where we'd go out to start a scene, and in my head, I'm like, be ready for the point where someone drops a line and I got to bail it out with some improv moment, like where like, aren't you? Why don't you tell us about this? So like just some like softball where I just got to lob them like, oh, interesting. Weren't you going to tell me about this situation? And oh, yes. Yeah.
Well, and here's something, there's a hidden element in theater that you don't think about, which are those wonderful people who don't get enough credit, which are ASMs, assistant stage managers, who are on the book, know where you've gone wrong, and try to get you back. I can think of 2 situations in particular where, oh my God, it was a disaster was happening on stage. And I remember one where an actor skipped 2 pages completely of the script while on stage. And I heard and I went, wait a second, that's not where we're supposed to be. I have to get this other actor on stage right now. So I ran, like, bolted off to get this other actor to get him on stage. Well, thankfully, the 2 other actors, besides that other person who skipped, managed somehow to weave the story right back to get them back. So we had time. That was a beautiful one. The other one I remember distinctly was, and it's one of those things where actors, you know, sometimes they get really caught up in the moment in a role and they kind of lose their mind on stage. And it was this scene where the person was moving out of the apartment and like tossing things into a suitcase. And they usually had a routine. They would go from item to item around the room and grab that thing. And then one time, this girl, and I don't let her live it down ever. I still friends with her. I keep up with her. You're that time. She grabbed a vase that she never grabbed before and threw it in the suitcase. It shatters inside the suitcase. And I'm going, oh no, we got broken glass on stage. And you're both in your like bare feet. Oh God. Like, oh yeah. And thankfully they managed somehow. And then at intermission, I ran out there, grabbed the suitcase, hauled it off the stage. I swept everything up between the thank God it was intermission. Thank God there was a space to do it. And just everything. Like I was it was just crazy. Yeah. But that's again a little bit of that dangerous theater, right? Like if you do that in a film project, you stop the camera, someone comes in, vacuums everything, cleans up everything, and they walk away, reset it nicely because you have to have continuity, and we head back on. But
they got 9 vases locked and loaded from
we had that one and it never showed up again, amazingly enough.
It was vital to the production before then, and then we just cut it.
Yeah. Well, that play was funny because I also had a live goldfish in it. They actually want you to have a live goldfish in the and that was supposed to go in the suitcase too at some point. Like you don't ever do that. But I remember that show because at the end of every show, I'd walk out during the curtain call with the fishbowl, bow, and then walk.
Nice.
That fish somehow lived. I don't know how that fish lived so well. He lived a full year after the show finished, actually.
Nice.
Wow.
Did the fish get a standing O every night?
Oh God, yeah. That fish got such a clapping at the end of every show. It was like because they just weren't expecting it.
Yeah. Any animal that's ever in a show on stage always gets a standing ovation.
Yeah.
Every dog I've seen.
Oh, I hear you, but there's also the anti-animal thing. It's like I do not trust a show that has animals and children. Like no, like Chitty Chitty Bang Bang the musical. That should not happen.
Right. Yeah, that's just a disaster way.
Too many dogs, too many children. Okay, just too many, you know.
Yeah. Okay, so Stephen, what was your very first paid gig as a writer or theater practitioner or producer?
I'm not sure it actually has happened, but I mean, I mean, as a writer, I guess, okay. I guess it would be State of Tennessee because technically I got like second place. So I got like $200 for that.
Okay, sweet.
So I guess, yeah, I shouldn't complain too much. I actually haven't had my first like where they commission me to write something. So I can tell you something's happening. But anyways, but it hasn't happened yet that way. But yeah, as a writer, I'm a little bit of an oddball on this. I mean, I will take an equal cut with everyone else. But I remember Seat Next to King. We did this just so well that it was so great to actually pay actors well for a show. Like sometimes, like, and Brandon knows this because I've given him so little money. But but it's so nice to actually pay actors really well when you get a show that does something like that. And Seat Next to King was one of those shows where I was able to do that. I always pay actors anyway, and they'll always ask me and go, "Did we make any money?" No. Yeah, you walk away. But Seat Next to King was so cool that even when it came to the second run, I said, I want like $500 just to replace the set piece. And I gave the rest of the money to the actors and the director and the stage manager at that point. I said, I don't need any more money from the production now. I'd rather the actors get the money for this at this point in time. I've kind of finished writing. So I finished my job. So yeah, so that was interesting. Yeah, definitely. So I've won like a few prizes for plays and stuff like that. When that's where I get paid, but not like as a regular thing. I wish, but not there yet. Hopefully Sunday.
Yeah. So what's been the most interesting place that you've staged a performance? Now, this can be positive. This can be really weird. Like there could be poop in the stage or on the stage or something.
It's odd. I mean, I've been very fortunate to get theater spaces in my career. So I'll be very fortunate because I'm always very conscious of, where the actors have to play. Mm-hmm. And usually for a long time, I was always self-producing. So it was kind of like, you don't want to give your actors a dangerous space. So I will say it was an almost happened type of show. There was a show I had called Real Life Superhero, and I wanted to do it during the Toronto Fringe. But I wanted to do as a BYOV. Like that's what, at one point with the Fringe, I couldn't get in to save my life, that bloody lottery. I went 16 years without getting picked either for a wait list or in. Seat Next to the King was the first time I ever got in per se on technically my own right, but yeah, that's why I love that contest so much. But I almost did a BYOV at one point. It was only the Toronto District School Board rules that wouldn't allow me to do it, and it was going to be at Central Tech, and it was going to be outside in the garbage dump area because we needed a garbage bin, and they were so like protective of that garbage bin. Like he was really like, you're gonna hurt the garbage. I'm like, how am I gonna hurt a big metal garbage? I'm like, I'm not running into it with a vehicle. I'm like, I'm lifting the lid and closing it. Like that's pretty much the essential part of that whole garbage bin. And
so you're assaulting the garbage bin. Is what
I apparently was, and it was gonna be a fun story. We've done it. We did produce it. We created a garbage bin. We built one, but I really wanted to do it with an actual garbage bin, and I think I would look way better. It was about a guy who dresses up as a superhero at night, and after he's found murdered, they started to dig into why he decided to do all this, and it's told from like 5 different perspectives, including the person who murdered him.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was a fun script. We were gonna do it in Brandon, Manitoba at one point, but they were like, "Oh, well, there's not quite enough action in it." And I'm like going, like, okay, there's. Okay. Yeah, sure. Brennan knows I'm very dialogue heavy. I don't write a lot of stage directions, and some people mistake that for there's no actions in the play. I'm like, well, no, you can create actions without me writing you. Brandon sits down on chair. Brandon stands up from chair. Brandon sits down on couch now, like that sort of thing, right? And it's like I don't write that stuff. Why does it matter if I write? Like a director could change that anyway. If you read a script, those little like. Those director scripts, they're all stage directions that a stage manager wrote down, not what the writer wrote. So
yeah, and sometimes there's like how you say everything. Like he said it this way, he said softly, he said loudly, or it's caps, or it's exclamation points. And
yeah, I mean, I write those sometimes. I don't write a lot of dialect. I kind of hope we'll work and figure out together because I've got to figure out what the actor can do too, right? I mean, an actor who's a professional actor will get trained in dialects. If I get a community theater production, I can't expect that. I mean, they might get some of the dialogue figured out, but we'll figure it out together. Like that's the other thing too. I really love that when directors and actors work on my script, that they work it out together. It's not just the same me. Here's the script. Now you guys work it out. Yeah.
Love it. How did you first get started with Fringes? What was your first one? And how's, I think it's sort of a renowned like around the world. It's for a lot of actors and for a lot of playwrights. That's your first crack at getting your work up and seen by live audiences. But how did it start for you?
Yeah, Fringes are awesome. Just because it's not about being evaluated. It's just about luck of the draw in a lot of ways, except for the new play contests. So I didn't get in after I won for State of Tennessee, you don't get a production for second place, unfortunately. You only get for first. So, again, I had to keep waiting for that bloody lottery to happen, and never quite happened. And then my partner got picked in the lottery in 2010. and I did my first kind of show on a stage, which was called Brothers in Arms. It was a 2-part story. One was in 1940s, one was in 1990s. It was about a comic book writer, a soldier who's his brother who's lost his arm, and a girl who gets caught between. And it was told in both perspectives between World War II and the Iraq conflict. Because I love how comic books fall in that. So that was our first show we did, and I got the worst review I've ever got. I loved it. It was awesome. The day the review happened, my partner was at the Fringe office. He was working at the box office, and I cocked him. I said, "Oh, did we get any reviews or anything?" And he was like, no. I'm like, we got a review, don't you? And he's like, yes. I said, well, just read it to me. He said, Stephen, I don't want it. Like, no, just read it to me. And he reads it and said, it was a 1-star from iWeekly. And it said, Stephen Jackson has had his theater cherry popped. That was the first line. And I was like, and I heard this and I went silent on the phone, and then I just started laughing, just hilarious laughing. Because I'm like, I said, Todd, you've got to understand, I've been waiting for that review all my life. Like, that's where do you go from there? Like, you can't go any worse. I mean, that's what's worse than a 1-star review? I guess a half a star. I guess I know. I don't know if iWeekly did half stars, but they always did at least one. I guess that was my worst review, but then we ended up getting like a 3-star from John Kaplan, who was awesome. And after that, yeah, you get used to it. So, but yeah, the Brothers in Arms was my first theater play. And then I ended up doing the next year, I ended up stage managing a show called The Last Rock and Roll Show that was in the same venue as Kim's Convenience at the Bathurst Street Theater. And that was an awing experience. Just the power of theater and what it can do was seeing that audience come in for that show, not our show. Our show was great, but seeing Kim's Convenience audience come in, and you just knew there was something very special that moment in time.
A friend of mine, Anto Chan, who's a comedian who was here on the weekend, and he's a stand-up comic actor. He also does a lot of poetry and spoken word. He did a few years ago at the Toronto Fringe pre-COVID. I don't know if it was just his show or if it was a series of shows, but they were called Shed Talks. Instead of TED Talks, they were Shed Talks. And it was one performer literally in a shed with I think they sold 5 tickets. And then it was just this intimate, and they would maybe whatever they were, 20 minutes long, half an hour long. And then they would just cycle in 5 more people, 5 more people, 5 more people, but really intimate. I love those ones at Fringe where they're like the format's a little different or often location specific, where they are in an alley or they're in some park somewhere. It's super creative.
I stage managed a shed show actually at the Fringe one year, and it was quite hilarious. But because you could do as many shows as you want in that 2 hours you had the shed. You could have 8. I think we had 8 people in the shed at a time. But it was really good because there was one night where one of the actors' families came late and missed the show, and we still had like a half an hour left of the shed. And so I said, no, you guys, you're going to go in again. You're going to do the show again one more time. And the actor was like, no, I can't do the show. I'm tired. I'm like, you just did 20 minutes. Like, come on. Right. So I forced her to do a show for her family. That was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Hi, Mom. Hi, Dad. Yeah.
Fringes are so fascinating because, I remember when we did Seat Next to the King, to have a show sell out like that was just the oddest experience in the world for me. It was it's such a great feeling, but such a scary feeling at the same time. I remember after the show, we got these standing ovations the first night, and me and the actors, the director, and stage manager, we all went back to the Fringe tent. And when shows succeed, you hear all these actors like woohoo and rawing and everything else. We were dead silent, just sitting at a table going, what just happened? We knew we had a good show, but this is something different. This is another level. And I think we were all very cognizant of the fact that this doesn't happen all the time. We're going to appreciate every moment of this. Because I've seen Fringe shows which started off super great, and then something happened halfway during the Fringe, and it changed the trajectory of that show. And that can happen at any moment. And it could happen to a show like that, the one I wrote too, because it's about race, right? And white guy writing about race, right? That it could change in a heartbeat. And it thankfully didn't. We kind of, any moments that came where we got a little, negative press, we just kind of, that's the nature of the game. You never know what you're going to get. And we stayed friends. Like, that's the other thing too, during the whole thing. Like, when you do shows, I always said the most important thing about having a successful show is that at the end of, if 6 months later, you can meet with those actors and everyone again and have just a great time together, just hanging out, talking about the show, you've had a successful show. It doesn't matter how many audience you have. It's whether or not you survive the experience of actually making it. That's a successful show.
Love that. Yeah.
Yeah. That's always a wonderful thing. I remember when I did Inch of Your Life for those 8 months, like, I still talk to every single one of the people in the cast. Like, it just bonded us for life. And like, you don't get to do a 3-part 8-month show independently. Like, that's never really done. And like, that was just
Massimo. That's Massimo's genius. That putting that show together, right? He wanted to create an experience where you could connect through. Like, that doesn't happen very often. Like, we think the only time we can ever think stuff like that is like Angels in America, maybe, where you have a 2-part play, right? But what he did with that show, it made you want to keep coming back to the theater to see it again. It was like a TV show, right? That's his kind of background, right? And there's pure genius in that. Pure genius.
That was
absolutely.
Yeah. I saw that.
So I want to get into like the later parts of your Fringe, and specifically the laughter. So we are doing a production for Hamilton Fringe this year, which opens next week, July 14th. That is called The Laughter. It's about Lou Costello and Lucille Ball. So let's talk a little bit about how you started writing that production and how we sort of started the research for it.
Yeah, this was a different way of coming about to a script, by all means. I had this spot in the Hamilton Fringe because of this play winning a prize there, but we couldn't do it there because it didn't feel right in the atmosphere. And so I had the spot. Brandon knows this a little bit, but I had another idea for a show I was going to do beforehand, but it fell apart because I couldn't get the actors together and everything. So one night I was like, I got the spot. I had a great time working with Kate and Brandon a year previous on this thing called The Cage, which we had such a great time. And I just asked them both. And I said, hey, if you had a chance to play any character in history, who would you want to play? And Brandon came off right at the top and said, Lou Costello. And I was like, okay, that's okay. This could be interesting. And he told me why. He told me this incredible story that happened in 1943 during the radio show and everything else. And then I looked over at Kate in her Zoom screen and went, okay, Kate, so who would you want to play? And I'm sitting there going, please, God, make it somewhere close. Like, if you say like Catherine the Great, I'll be like, oh, okay, we're screwed. This is not going to work out for one of you. But she says Lucille Ball. And I'm like, okay. And she shows me this picture. She showed the picture of what she looked like in Halloween, dressed up as Lucille Ball, and she looked amazing. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, so now I've still got to connect these two characters together. How am I going to do this? Well, then the coincidence of a lifetime happens, and it was that Lucille Ball was on that radio show that Abbott Costello had 2 weeks after this event that happened. And it's like 2 weeks. That's, oh my God, that's how perfect is that moment, right? And I remember playing like radio clips that night, trying to play them through our Zoom lenses. Yeah. And then I said, okay, well, now I've got to write this thing. I've got to write this, and that makes it, it's tricky because you have these larger than life characters. And this happens anytime you write history, by the way. There's like really, people have a conceived notion of who these characters are. I've got to play about Mary Todd Lincoln that people won't even recognize who she was, because most people think it was this crazy lady who did stuff and had seances. And I'm like, okay, there's a reason why she did this stuff. Like, but this case, it was like these two really funny people, but at a moment in life where it wasn't that funny. Like, it wasn't, there was a lot of hardships they were going through this point in time. And so I'm kind of the master of finding those like moments, right? Just where I love finding those like tiny little moments where things change. But we knew we had to write a piece that had some laughter in it and some funniness, because you can't write about Lou Costello and Lucille Ball and not have some laughs. But there's some very serious stuff that these two are going through in this moment in time. And it was just such a joy to write this story, to write it for both Brandon and Kate, to see two actors like just dig every week. Like every time we rehearsed, it was like they just got a little deeper and a little deeper and a little deeper. And the point, you know, I remember at one point saying to Kate, I said, I felt bad. I felt like I wrote more for Lou than for Lucille Ball, and that she just kept pulling stuff out, pulling in more. And by the end of it, they're on equal footing. And I was like, oh, thank God. Because that's a horrible feeling when you write a two-hander and it's obviously one person's show more than the other person. Some people find that with Seat Next to King a little bit. Like they feel like, oh, it's Bayard's story. But it's like, no, there's more to Walter than you have to give him some credit on this. He's on stage a lot more. So yeah, no, it was just a great experience writing it.
Yeah, and it was a fantastic experience working on it. Like, it really was a dream come true production for me specifically, just because I have been wanting to do Lou Costello and tell this story for 11 years. I've held on to this story and had no idea what to do with it until I finally spoke up to you and Kate, and like our teacher Tom Todoroff always says, it's say yes to what you want and say no to what you don't want. And this was something I've always wanted to do. So thank you so much, Stephen, for giving me that opportunity to figure out how to find Lou Costello's voice, figure out how I was going to be able to tell this story. And it really was a dream come true for me. So I thank you so much. Yeah. It really was such a pleasure.
And, you know, the fact that you said how you felt open enough to say that, you know, there's so many times in our lives where we don't feel open to say our opinions or our feelings on things. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I've always thought, you know, like when I'm directing or when I'm acting or when I'm writing, I say, you know, I'll tell actors, tell me if there's something that you think that needs to happen here, because that could be something that saves a show. Doesn't mean I'm always going to use it, but it might be something that connects something that we don't have. And to have actors as wanting to do a project as you are is the greatest thing. It's, you know, it's, you know, everyone has something at stake at doing something, and that makes the biggest difference. That means you usually come up with the best project from that.
Mm-hmm. Right. And just for clarity's sake for the audience, normally you'd be staging this on a stage, but this year they're still doing digital or virtual. Yes. So you guys shot it Zoom style and then recorded it, did you?
Yeah. So it was intriguing because, again, you know, Zoom plays are a little tricky sometimes. But we did with this one, we really tried to give the feeling that they were in the same room at the same time. And that was a key to doing this play, the way we did it. And how I wrote it and how I set it up to make it work that way. Yeah, it's part of what's called the digital exclusives of the Fringe. They really want to do live, but you know, we weren't there yet. And definitely a few months ago, we were definitely not thinking it was gonna be a live show. But yeah, it's to create that feeling of you're in the room with these characters. It's looking into the dressing room mirror of these two characters and what they're going through and what they're not telling and what they are telling, what they're not telling. That was kind of key to getting this project done.
Yeah.
Amazing.
We actually do have the first 2 minutes of the laughter. Ooh. If you guys want to see that?
Teaser. Yeah. Little, Lucille Ball, Lou Costello teaser here. Let's roll the clip.
Rolling the clip.
"30 minutes.
Who's there?
I don't know.
What?
What's on second?
Ah, for Christ's sake, I invented that sketch. It's the last thing I want to hear. Get in here. Oh, hey there. I didn't think anybody was back from the restaurant.
Well, I wasn't very hungry. I didn't go.
Oh, you gotta eat. I'm a living testament to that.
It's different for ladies, Lou. I've got a whole bunch of guys in Hollywood who would love for me to lose weight, whether I was, well, your size or a toothpick. They try to force those pills, but I tell them where to shove them.
Yeah, well, this isn't quite Hollywood. It's a stuffy sound boot in New York City.
Well, at least it's something, Lou. Besides, Hollywood's not exactly calling.
Well, you can grab something off the catering table and after the show. So, what brings you by? Come, have a seat.
Well, thanks there, Lou. What are you doing with all the makeup?
Ah, you gotta be ready when somebody wants a picture. Some publicity guy comes running in.
It's been a while since that's happened for me.
Liar, they always want a gal done up. Well, do it for me. A guy shouldn't have more makeup than a lady.
It's New York. I could send you to a few places where it's quite the opposite.
That is the truth. Just, humor me?
Well, just for you then. That's the great part of radio. No one can see the mistakes.
It depends on which mistakes those are. Nah, I always like to get it done up right. Makes me feel like I'm doing it live for people in theaters.
I can understand that.
I figured you would. I miss all the live stuff.
There you
Wow.
go. That is the first 2 minutes of the laughter.
Very, very apropos there, missing live theater and having to do things digitally or in their case, radio wise. Yeah.
Well, I remember when I was writing it, that was part of it because I knew it was going to be recorded. And, it's anything right now, theater actors are just missing being on a stage so badly right now. But there's also a lot about just the idea of what we went through this past 18 months. And, there was a lot of sadness that happened through this last year and a bit. And how does one find laughter when all that stuff's going on? And that's really what the idea of the show is.
Yeah, great job by both of you too. The look and the voices and accents and stuff, that was awesome. You were like spot on, spitting image. I think that's a character, Brandon, that you should keep him close to you for a long time, so that anytime anything like I don't remember a biopic recently. I don't know if there has been one, but I would say you're easily in the running to get yourself on screen.
That would be a dream.
Or the other question is, after Fringe, do you guys have any plans to carry this on and to do it somewhere else on a stage, or is that just always in the cards for you with your productions? You just see where they land?
Yeah, I've learned as a writer not to write for a certain stage, but to write the story you want to write and find out which stage it goes on. And I find that you're less disappointed that way. Writing, I tell people with writing, it's like, if you can't be okay with 95% of the time being rejected, then just don't become a writer. Like, just don't. It's, you're going to get piles of actors the same way, right? It's just like, you're going to audition for so many shows and never get any of them. Like, and you'll get like one and you'll savor that one. And that's kind of writing's the same way. I would love, this one really needs to be on a stage. There's certain aspects, even with this sitting down, that there was just so much. There's limitations you can only do with Zoom a little bit, but there's so much you wanted, like, being able to get up and move around a little more would have been just so nice for these actors and stuff like that. What was really cool about it was just getting that perspective. It was funny to watch that again. And I keep kind of like going, because like getting the coloring, that background was just like a nightmare for me, trying to figure those things out as I'm learning Adobe Premiere. But when I watch it, it's, that zoom back in and out of the characters when they're doing stuff with the makeup in the mirror, just it made it so real to me. So yeah,
you definitely pulled it off. As I was watching that, as Lucy came into frame there, the interaction between both of you seemed like you were in the same room there. So yeah, it looked great. I forgot for a second that I was like, oh wait, this is a Zoom thing. Yeah, it's interesting.
Well, and that's kind of what we were, honestly, I remember when we talked about conceiving it, which was, we have to get that feel. If you don't get that feel, it's like, I love doing stuff like The Woman He Painted. I remember, Brandon, we had that goof up where I forgot to save it in gallery mode versus, and I was like, oh, damn it. If I'd saved it in gallery mode, it'd be so different. But this one, it was so important to get that feel because we're just craving theater right now. And this is about safe as we can get right now. Mm-hmm. And so, getting how they looked at each other. We talked about this incessantly because it had to happen properly. You had to know, okay, if you're looking straight ahead, if you're looking the opposite person's mirror, if you're looking up, if you're looking down, if you're, that sort of thing, but we're only gonna get the mirror view of that. And so that's kind of the fun. I won't say what the scene is, but there's a great scene where Brandon tries to get up and leaving, and to get that feeling that you don't get to see what his face says, but you definitely get a feeling from his body about what just happened to him at that moment in time when a piece of information comes out. So, it was just a great experience to try and do that. Not that I don't. I miss live, just like Lou says. I miss live a lot. This was a very close experience.
What I found most interesting watching The Woman He Painted and then this back to back was the camera consciousness within me and within Kate as well, where we both sort of had figured out how to work Zoom and how to work with the camera and what to do with that sort of thing, because you could still see that it was very much in the early stages, especially for me, because I was looking above camera rather than like right beside. And so like you could tell like it's just a different feel, and it feels a lot cleaner in the laughter, like just how we worked it.
Yeah, well, I mean, and we worked really hard. Well, I mean, with the other show, the big difference, of course, was there were 6 actors, and there's a whole mess of other people, which you can't do very well in Zoom. Zoom only really works if you got 2 actors. The minute you've got more than 2, it goes to a different line, and it's like, okay, like even like the cage, like you guys did a great job translating the cage over to something else, but then we had, because we wanted to have the cage in there to some degree, this bird cage in the shot, and so we had to create a third page, which always kind of took it out a little bit. But I love writing for Brandon and Kate so much because they like, no matter what I throw at them, they seem just to go okay, and they just do it. Like, you know, I thought, and that's how I love which actor friends I have the most. I can tell because I can just throw things at them and they will just okay, let's try it. Okay, let's do it.
Yeah, that's
See how it goes.
That's one of the great things as you have some time in your career where you do get those relationships where directors have their go-to actors have their go-to writer directors that they work with, and so certainly hang on to that relationship between the two of you, because it definitely seems to be working right now.
Yeah.
So just
milk
it, and then you don't have to worry about auditioning people either.
Yeah.
You don't have to go
We actually talked about, with this piece and the cage, doing like both of them the same night. That might kill Brandon, but
that'd be fun.
Might kill emotionally, but
So how can people do you want to just let people know where to go if people want to see tickets? I certainly want to see it myself, so
so I'm going to be posting the Fringe event page into the chats right now, and there you go. So you can check out Hamilton Fringe. It's going to be running between the July 14th through the 25th. So go to the hamiltonfringe.com. .ca/events, and you will find it there.
And I think if you want even faster route, it's like boxoffice.hamiltonfringe.ca, and it goes right to the box office for all the events. And there's an amazing group of plays coming on there. And Hamilton is one of those places that's really changing up, you know, who's telling stories. But what I like about it is that they are intermingling them together. It's like not just like one person telling a story and then now someone else telling a story. It's like they're all trying to create this incredibly inclusive theater event there. So
amazing. Well, congrats to both of you and to Kate as well. And I'll definitely be on it. So I'm looking forward to seeing more.
So let's start wrapping this baby up. Stephen, so what we like to do for the last question is just ask you some closing thoughts. What advice would you give to current theater artists that are trying to get into the business?
Oh dear. I saw the fathers come up. I'm like, well, what advice would I give to a father about, you know, their
that was a couple of weeks
I can tell you a
ago.
lot. My dad was great. Yeah, my dad was great. He accept that your child will not be you. That's my first thing. Yeah, just accept that. So I guess the advice I would say is, I think the big one I said already, which was, you know, write for yourself first and find out where it goes. I write American history a lot, like way too much, probably more than I should. And I can get it done here, but I might have to go to the States to actually shoot it, to actually find homes for it. And it's kind of found that kind of journey too as well. I want to be Canadian. I want to be in Canada. That's my thing. I'm starting to write more Canadian history, but write what you love. Like don't. And the other piece I really say about writers is there's that whole adage of write what you know, write what you don't know. It's both those at the same time. It's both those. It's great to write what you know only, but then you'll never grow past that. But the same thing is, if you write just what you don't know, then you might have a hard time fitting into it. So I say write what you know, but write what you don't know all at the same time. And you'll find a lot of ways scripts. I like to write scripts from a connection perspective. So I'm not just writing about one character and that's it. I'm writing about two characters and where they connect. So often where one character, I'll understand who they are, the other one I might not. And so that's what I have to learn. And I think that it's kind of an old adage of life, it keeps you learning, right? It keeps you always wanting to know more, to dig deeper into think topics that you may not have knowledge of. So write what you know, but write what you don't know and find a way how those come together at the same time.
Yeah, that's great. That's fantastic. Thank you so much for being here, Stephen. Everyone, please remember to check out The Laughter at the Hamilton Fringe. We posted the link in the chat below. It is a pay what you can afford show. If you can give $5, please. If you can give more than that, that would be incredibly helpful as well.
You hear that, you rich Hamilton people? For all the people living up on the mountain, open those pockets, get those coffers ready.
Well, and it's a digital event, so anyone anywhere in the world can watch it technically.
True,
and you buy a screening, but you can watch a screening at any point. Yeah.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Yes. So don't wait. Buy your tickets now. Thank you again for being here, Stephen. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in on this Monday Fun Day. Please check out Comedy Alley at laughingvikings.comedyalley for your Comedy Alley tickets.
Correct.
And we will see you next Monday.
One more thing I want to let people know. If you're new to LV, Laughing Vikings, if you're an actor, be sure to go to laughingvikings.com/gift and you can get your first self-tape audition session for free here at the studio, where one of us will help you shoot that, whether it's Brandon, myself, or one of the other session directors. And if you're an actor, comedian, or creator, and you want to join our community here, you can do that at laughingvikings.com, and that gives you access to all our studio services, discounts on all the services, including half-price tickets to Comedy Alley. So if you want to check out Comedy Alley shows or you want to use the studio, the best way to do that is to become a member, and you'll also get some swag with your membership. You can wear these sweet tees. I think, Stephen, we got to hook you up with one of these as well.
Yeah,
I think you do. I felt very naked without it, so
well, your wardrobe today was fantastic, and fantastic background. Everything.
The hat really sells it. I love the hat.
Oh, I got a whole tree of hats here. Trust me, I had a choice. I was like, Brandon's gonna get the bowler at some point just to try it on.
Beautiful. Yeah, thank you so much for being on the show. It was amazing. We love to meet writers. Sounds like you're doing great, and sounds like this show is going to be exciting to see. I'm pumped.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Goodbye, everyone. We'll see you next week. Comedy Alley.
Goodbye.